Hello and welcome to Card Shop Insiders, a podcast where we bring together decades of experience from both sides of the counter to take you inside the business of local game stores and collectible gaming hobbies. I am Noah and I play games, lots of them.
Hi, I'm John, card shop owner and a veteran of the industry.
Well, with our combined perspectives, a little bit of a mumble, and a microphone that's not on mute, let's go ahead and jump in this week, John. How you doing?
Not too bad, Noah. How about you?
I'm pretty good. How was the weekend for you?
It could have been better. I always say, you got to get people into the store, but a lot of people didn't show up this weekend. And primarily the weather was bad and they had too many other competing events at some of the other stores. And they had a competing event. Star City Games ran a large event up in Richmond and it always draws people away. They did Magic the Gathering. They did Flesh and Blood, Lorcana, and Star Wars. So
I guess it's a little bit of a balance for you. Like having big events represents success for these games, and more success for the games means more interest locally. But if you're having this issue where like on those weekends, you're not having anybody in the store, it's difficult to run a small shop.
Yeah. And you have to make provisions of that. I know on Memorial Day weekend, a whole bunch of people are going down to Atlanta to play Lorcana. Now that's going to draw 6 of my regulars away from the store for the entire weekend. I mean, it's no big deal, but it does hurt in the long run.
Yeah. Well, let's talk for a second about some of the news. I guess why don't we start with Star Wars? It was May the 4th this weekend.
Yep. It was May the 4th, and that's officially, well, unofficial, they call it the Star Wars Day, and with fans greeting each other. May the 4th be with you. And George Lucas created the Star Wars franchise back in 1977. And I can still remember taking my son, John, who was 7 at the time, to see the Star Wars movie, which was pretty cool. And he still remembers that. And celebrated every year on May 4th. As I said before, it's the unofficial Star Wars Day, partly because of the famous Jedi phrase, May the Force be with you. And then the pun, or the May the 4th be with you. And it was kind of interesting. One of the earliest known uses of the phrase occurred on May 4th, 1979, when a writer for the London newspaper congratulated Britain's new Prime Minister, Margaret Thatcher, on her first day in office. In a full-page ad, the writer had stated, May the 4th be with you, Maggie. Congratulations.
That's pretty good. It's a great greeting, and I'm glad to hear that there's a little bit of history to go with it. Let's talk about the game, though. I hear that you've gotten some information about set championships, and I've seen on the internet that several stores have already started running some of these tournaments.
These showdowns?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I believe it's because they're getting their product directly from Asmodee.
Really?
Yeah, because Asmodee is the primary distributor. Asmodee owns Fantasy Flight Games. So some of the stores who have Asmodee accounts are getting these kits, first. And from what I understand, we're getting a kit and we're going to be getting 5 more boxes to sell. But again, there's no time frame on it yet. I saw it in my order queue this morning. It's in my pre-order queue, but it's not officially available to ship out yet. Now that could change. I could get on the system later and check my orders, and it could be in my order queue ready to ship out. So we really don't have any idea when, and that's why I'm not scheduling an event yet.
I think the event's going to be pretty awesome. It's going to be similar to the Lorcana tournament that we just ran.
It is.
The promo for it is something that people are really excited for. I'm not sure. I think it's been in a couple of competitive decks. I think it'll get in more competitive decks once people are starting to get this promo card and they want to show it off. But unlike the Lorcana tournament, where 1 copy of the promo for each of the top 4, my understanding is with these set showdowns that the promo is going to be everybody in top 8 gets one, everybody in top 4 gets a second one, and then runner-up gets a finalist promo, and then the winner is going to get a finalist promo and a champions promo. So they'll take home 4 copies of the Mace Windu with different stamps on it.
Yeah, that'd be pretty cool. I know a store in Raleigh, which is probably about 30 miles away, they did their event this weekend, and a couple of players went on Saturday, and they came in on Sunday and told me what went on. And they said, the event was pretty good. They had 22 people, but he thought it was a little bit too expensive. The store, the entry fee was $40 plus tax, came out to $43. And they expected 32 people. That's what they capped it at, but they only got 22 people. So I'm not sure, given the amount of prizes that they gave out, because they gave out a lightsaber and a whole bunch of other stuff. So I'm not sure how much money they actually took home with. I think they might have even lost some money. And this is something we talked about before.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing, and it'll segue nicely eventually into our topic for today. Let's hit a couple other quick news things, though. Lorcana's got a new set coming out next week.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of spoilers coming out for that. People are getting pretty excited. Updates to the mechanics, some new card functions, new copies of popular characters, really expanding the game and the deck possibilities. I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
It is. Noah, I'm going to spring this on you. Last week, we talked about the allocations for the next set. And I expounded upon, I'm getting 36 boxes and that's what I asked and so forth and so on. So after we recorded the last week's event, I got on the phone with my sales rep to place my regular order. And I said, what the hell happened with the allocations that we were supposed to get? He said, well, make a long story short, Ravensburger opened up 600 more tournament stores or OTS stores or OP stores. And I said, 600. He said, yeah. And there's three different distributors. There's Alliance Games, there's Southern Hobby, and there's Peach State. And I think Southern Hobby is probably the largest. So we said we had to take and accommodate those other stores, which caused us to take from everybody else. And that's what created the shortage. I'm just hoping that they're not spreading themselves too thin and they're giving it to everybody and their brother. And the problem is, for instance, suppose I know in this area, we have 6 stores, 7 or 8, maybe 7 or 8 stores that are all doing the event. And everybody's getting their little bit of a fair share here and there. But if they add a couple of more stores, it's going to dilute it and it's going to make it less popular because everybody's going to have it. There's not going to be a demand for it as much as it is right now.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of one of the worries that you and I talk about in terms of how the store runs. The diluting of the product across too many different vendors causes some problems. I mean, I think it's great for some players. It gives them a lot of options. It gives you lots of different options for organized play. But I mean, I think Ravensburger is going to sell the same amount of product, whether they have it in 600 stores or 500 stores. We're not staying away because there's not enough stores selling it. People are having problems getting it in their hands because people are being limited to how much they can have. So I hope with the new set coming out that we're going to be able to get access to it. It's going to be a lot of fun to open and play with this new product. And there's a new game mode. So we'll see how that shakes out and what that does to affect the casual scene here in the store.
I found out, I was looking at Reddit, somebody had, when they came in on Saturday or Sunday, they were talking about the tournament software for Star Wars. From what I understand, it's still in the beta stage. And they're not going to have the program or software ready until the next set comes out. So the store that did it this weekend that had 22 players had problems with doing it the way it was supposed to be done. And they turned and they did it on Melee instead. Melee being, the, I guess, more sophisticated program that can handle it. So that may change in the future. Maybe Star Wars will say, hey, if our program is not good enough and we can't use it, we may use Melee. I don't know, but we'll see.
I don't think that they'll abandon their product. There's so much value in the data they can get from having their own software run the tournaments. But I think what is an important thing is that the stores that are running OP events at least try to use their beta products so that they can get the feedback they need and then they can improve the product for when it's fully launched.
From what I understand, though, they're not even recording this data. Now, this is just speculation. However, you're supposed to have a Star Wars account. You could sign up on StarWarsUnlimited.com and you get a 6-digit number and your screen name. And that's what I have to input into the system when you come into play. And like, for instance, if somebody doesn't have it at the beginning before they said, hey, you got to do this, I was just using random numbers and putting your names in. And again, you talk about allocations. And hopefully it's going to go towards those allocations. And that's why I think we got the showdown, because of the numbers that we were putting in right from the beginning.
We had a lot of people play, and we're having a lot of people really like the game. And it's turned out that the deck building in the game is very deep and complicated, and there can be a lot of variety in what is competitive. I think we talked maybe last week, or maybe you and I just talked about it, that the big tournament that was run in Florida, I think there were 6 different decks represented in the top 8.
Is that the one in Kissimmee?
Yeah. And I think that was really cool. Having 8 different decks. I mean, I'm pretty sure that Magic Pro Tour was last week, and I think they had 4 different decks in the top 8, which is surprising to some people because there was a big dichotomy of what decks were good and what weren't.
One other thing. Again, I was looking around Reddit this morning, and one of the topics was, why is Lorcana being outpaced by Star Wars at some of the cons, the bigger events. And, there was a discussion that was started, and I'm reading it right out from here. It says, looked like there were 120-ish players for the Star Wars event up in Richmond. And however, there was only 57 people for the Lorcana event. The Lorcana event being a 5K and the Star Wars event being a 4K. And, there was a lot of comments. A couple of people said, hey, it's literally Star Wars Day, May the 4th. And, Lorcana Store Champions were happening last weekend and drew players away. There's so much money that people have that they could spend, and going to these events costs money, costs a lot of money in some instances.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of different factors that would go into that, especially in that particular event. But I think that there's also an ebb and flow. I mean, we see it with the established game Magic. People are really excited when a new set releases. They go through the cycle of coming to the pre-release. They do the release tournaments. People do drafts for several weeks. People gear up and get ready to play in the bigger tournaments and the regional and qualifiers and stuff to try to get into a PTQ and up the chain. And then there's the Pro Tour that culminates the cycle, and then they're releasing new sets and new cards. I think Lorcana was in a phase this week where people have kind of peaked for set 3. We put in a lot of time and a lot of work to get ready to play in the set and store championships. And now we're 2 weeks out from having the new set, and people are kind of maybe chilling a little bit on the game.
Yeah, I've heard that comment here with people coming into the store, and very similar comments in this Reddit thread. Also, they talked about being able to play Lorcana online with Pixelborn, is that what it's called, or something like that? And that's drawing some people away. They say, hey, we don't have to travel. We can play online, because evidently Pixelborn did a 5K event online to compete directly with the on-location event up in Richmond, which I found to be a little bit interesting.
Yeah, I don't know if that was an intentional thing to compete with the Richmond event. I think that they do one about every month, and they did one Easter weekend, and they did one this past weekend. It's kind of becoming a thing on the first weekend of the month that there's a big online tournament. But the online scene for Lorcana is an interesting thing to discuss, because the Pixelbook client is fantastic. Pavel, the guy that develops it, has done great work. The program looks like it's an official program that goes with the game, but it's not. Actually, the program doesn't give you any of the card images. In order to have pictures of the cards in the game, you have to put them in yourself. There's some shortcuts that the internet has helped everybody with to do that, but it is not an official product, and I think it does a lot to benefit the game. And I don't think it takes away from the organized play in store. I think there's a big difference between playing in a store and playing online.
When do you think Ravensburger is going to get smart and take him down, or force him to go down?
I don't know that they're going to take him down. If Ravensburger's smart, in my opinion, they're going to work out a deal with them for an acquisition or something like that, if he'll even have that conversation. It's a complicated international law issue, though.
Where's he located?
Somewhere in Eastern Europe. I think everybody that supports him financially does it through Patreon, though. Patreon.
Is that how it works?
Yeah, it's an established platform. It's very safe and clean. And he does a monthly report where he tells what the money's been used for. He uses it to maintain the servers. I don't think he's taking profit at all from what's being donated through Patreon. And he's done different disbursements to nonprofits and charities around the world. And so, I mean, he's really committed to making a great product and giving people an opportunity to play and access the game. My understanding is the reason it started was because they weren't going to have organized play locally, and he wanted to give people an opportunity in parts of the world that weren't getting OP during set one the chance to play this great game.
Well, we'll see how it works. We'll see how it goes. When the new set comes out, we'll see how many people come back to play.
I think a lot of people will. And I think Star Wars is in an interesting position too. I think that they have started the hype for set 2. I think they're putting out good social media content, good advertising. They're getting into big events like we just talked about. 150 people at Richmond is a huge deal. And the game's fun to play. I think we're really in a boon right now for the industry, because we have 2 new games that are just really fun to play, and they've managed to pair the mechanics with great IP. I do think there's a possibility that Star Wars maybe has more durability than Lorcana and the Disney IP, because the Star Wars IP appeals to a little bit older audience.
Different demographic too.
Yeah, the different demographic is a big deal. I think Lorcana is always going to sell though, and I don't think that they're going to have a problem selling. Well, let's jump over from the news. I don't think we had anything else. There's a new release from Yu-Gi-Oh! Last week. That was as popular as it always is.
It is, but as we talked about last week, they did a YCS event that day that we were supposed to have our premiere So that hurt a lot of the local stores in the ability to be able to run their individual premiere at the store.
Yeah.
But, still people came back the following week and started playing.
There's new Pokemon coming out. I heard there's some exciting new stuff. They're bringing some of the Pokemon from the latest game into the TCG for the first time, so people are excited about that. And as always, those Pokemon sets have some really awesome alternate art that people are going to be chasing. That's still not one of the big ones for your store, is that right?
Yeah. I have some people that want to come in to play, but not like we used to. Most of the people that come in just are collectors. Yeah. And there's other stores that do big events and let them go there.
But you can only stretch yourself so thin, John. Well, let's transition over to our main topic for today. I wanted our main topic today to be about making money as a store. I think a lot of people that are listening to the podcast might want to know, how could you make money if you were to do this? And interestingly enough, this topic came up on Twitter and in social media this weekend. So let me read this initial tweet that got people going, and then we can talk maybe about some of your impressions as a store owner. Sure. About the concepts here. So I found this on Twitter. Don't remember the username that posted it, but it said, I want to play a tournament MTG without needing to pay $500 for a deck. Among those that want to prevent that are business-owning LGSs who sell their Shieldreds for $80. That person went on to say that singles are only worth whatever ink and cardboard cost, and advocated for local stores allowing proxies and fake cards to be used in formal tournament play. And quite frankly, John, the community went nuts over this. I mean, people, big name Magic players, big name card gamers responded to this post and this line and basically said, you don't have a place in a local game store.
He's asinine. For lack of a better term, he's an ass. Because that kind of statement, he doesn't really want to play. He wants to play cheap without expending any kind of money in his hobby or his perceived hobby.
Yeah.
Some people just like to blow off steam and piss off people and put these threads on the internet and see what kind of reaction they get.
Well, one person, I don't know that they owned a store. I think it was pretty clear they didn't, but they broke down like a hypothetical LGS. They said if it had 5 employees and they had this kind of standard rent, that they would be spending more than $60,000 a year just on overhead to keep the store open. And then they were going to need, on top of that, money to buy like product and things. And they estimated that if an LGS was wanting to truly make profit, they would need to charge $52 per player to play in your Friday Night Magic tournament every week.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it's very difficult to make money. You don't make any money on selling sealed product. You make very little. And especially, I have a loyalties rewards program. If people use their loyalty points, they'll get up to $25 off a box. And in some instances, I'm losing a couple of bucks. But that's fine. I'm keeping loyal customers and I'm keeping them happy. But in order to stay in business, you've got to have people come in and spend money in your store. And I've mentioned this numerous times. Asses in the seats. You get their entry fee. You figure out what the prize structure is going to be. The worst mistake you can make is posting this tournament and I'm going to guarantee these prizes. Then all of a sudden you get half the attendance. And then you're looking at a $2,000 or $3,000 loss. That's the worst thing that you can do.
Yeah, I think we've talked about that before, and about the idea of having prizes that scale with the event. A lot of your tournaments, you say it's 1.5 or 2 packs per person go to the prize pool, and then that prize pool gets split up between all the people that play in the event.
Yeah, well, again, the way I do it, Noah, I try to serve the local community. And I've always done this in the 25 years I've had this store. A kid comes into play and he gets creamed. He loses every single match and he's dejected. But at the end of the night, he's still going to get a pack. And he may pull a $50 card. It's happened numerous times. And then that kid is elated. He wants to come back the following week, whereby you get some stores that only cater to the top 4 or the top 8. And again, I'm getting back to the word snipers. This is where all the snipers go. They'll pay $20 to get into a tournament, and hopefully, they'll derive $100 worth of prizes and screw the other people in the event. That's just not fair, in my opinion.
The other thought that I had about this was that there's a difference between in-store gaming and online gaming. I mean, there's an opportunity to play like Magic. Arena is supposedly free, right? You can get into Arena, you can play for free, you can grind and accrue in-game currency, you can expand your online collection. When you buy physical cards, you get codes that can help you expand your collection in the game. But the in-store experience is more than just playing the game. right? Like
Sure.
you're coming in here, there's a social element to it, there's a physicality to being in the room, and you've got to have some sort of compensation for making that available. This is not a public park. We are not just open to the public to come have a cup of tea and hang out. This is a place where people are coming together for the purpose of playing a game, and you're making that possible. And I think it's reasonable for you to be compensated for that.
I don't know, maybe in the first episode or two, I talked about when I first opened doing Pokemon. I had parents dropping off their kid who played Pokemon and their younger brother who just came in. And I said to myself, I'm not a damn babysitter, especially when this younger kid was on the porch pissing out into the parking lot. And I've seen that happen a couple times.
Oh, goodness.
So when that parent came in the next time, I said, if you want to leave him here, it's going to cost you $5 to leave him here. Oh, then they took the kid. It wasn't fair to me. It wasn't fair to their brother or, whoever was supposedly responsible for them. And it became a liability aspect for me. I wasn't going to do it.
I think that's a concept that does need to be thought about and directed is like, what are the liabilities for the store? I think that's an expense that people don't even take into account. I mean, you've got to have insurance for the store. There's a bunch of stuff we're not in the tweet thread that were left out about these other costs you and I have talked about, professional fees, management fees, taxes, things like that. And people just think that you're here to serve their need. But it's an economic exchange. It's you give value and you give value. Both people have to give value. So I think it's really hard. And I was really glad to see the community kind of step up and defend the local stores and say, look, if this is your attitude, this is the wrong hobby.
Oh, I agree 100%. If I had seen it, I would have commented myself.
I think several store owners did. One of them just outright said, if you live in my area, don't come to my store.
Did he really?
Yeah.
Good for him.
I mean, and it's harsh because it's a social thing. We want people to come in the store, but we don't want people to come in the store that are going to take that attitude and poison the well.
I've had that happen in the past where people have come in the store and they turned up their nose. Oh, it costs money to play? Yeah, if you're going to get prizes, it costs money. And in certain instances, I said, look, you could play, but you're not getting any prizes today. And, you're just not, because I'm not giving you stuff. It was an economic decision that I made with some of the kids that came in that I knew that couldn't really afford it.
Yeah.
But there's some hot shots that come in and think they could play for free. This boy isn't going to do it. No way in hell.
I just don't think it's reasonable. There was a debate a few weeks ago on Twitter, and people were talking about LGS stores going to a door fee model where in order to come in and play, you had to pay at the door. And it was $5 to get in, and it was open play. And then if there was a tournament, there was an additional fee for the tournament. But if you were going to come in and sit down and play games, you had to pay $5. And people were really mad about it. And then there were the people that were kind of me that were look, that's really reasonable. If they're opening the space, letting you come in and play, you've got to expect to exchange value. And that's an okay thing to do.
Well, I mean, in some instances, you don't need to do that. I don't do that. But other stores that are not just gaming stores, they could be coffee shops. They could be bars who have play space, who all of a sudden run magic tournaments, all that kind of stuff, or Warhammer or whatever. You get people to come in the store. You don't need to charge them for, sitting down and playing a board game, because they're going to be buying your beer or your wine. And that's how you're going to make your money. But, if somebody that comes in that doesn't buy anything, it's no way. They won't be in the store long. I can tell you that.
Yeah. Well, let's look at one of the other questions I thought we could jump into from this was a little bit more of an explanation of how the store makes money. I don't think we have to go into your P&L statement or the exact numbers on it. But you said today, booster boxes don't make you money.
Right.
When I come into the store and I am participating in a tournament or buying product, how are we keeping the store open if a booster box isn't where the money's coming across the table?
Well, what you do is you set your fees for tournaments actually to the price of a individual pack or close to it. And you factor in that with the number of prizes you're giving out. Again, get back to that old adage, get people in the seats. You need to get people in the seats. And you make most of your money on individual pack sales, individual card sales, and individual that come in and buy other things in the store, especially supplies. That's where you make your most money. Your most profit margin is in individual, sales of deck boxes and sleeves and things like that. And that you make more money doing that. But unfortunately, that prices are going up too. Cost of plastic, it's skyrocketed. Penny sleeves are no longer a penny. They're like 3 or 4 cents a piece now. That's just the cost of doing business. And you got to buy the product and you have no choice. This is what you have to pay for it. And that's what you have to charge for it.
That reminds me of another tweet I saw this weekend. Somebody said they sat down at their LGS to play, and somebody sat down with a deck of 60 cards, and it was in all different color sleeves.
Oh, really?
And they said it was a new kid. They were really gracious about trying to help him out. Everybody got a big kick out of it, though, because if that was a competitive event, you have to have the same sleeves on all your cards. Yeah. You would know that your best card is in a yellow sleeve or a green sleeve. And it was just really funny.
And the kid didn't know any better.
No, the kid just put his sleeves on.
But I'm glad the community helped him out. I've seen that happen here, where somebody comes in with all ragged sleeves and all of a sudden somebody will come up, a regular player will come up and say, put this on my tab, give it to him. And in certain instances, I'll grab a pack of sleeves and give it to the kid and say, hey, sleeve them up.
There's nothing that hurts me more than watching a kid come in the store with a deck that is unsleeved and try to rifle shuffle it, like pushing the cards against each other.
Yeah. Like your son, he's got them in sleeves, but he beats the hell out of those cards, doesn't he?
He is a strong shuffler, is what we'll like to say.
How old is he, though? He's only 8, right?
Yeah, he's 8. He broke a sleeve, the 2 sleeves last week. And I was like, what are you doing?
He's got to learn.
Well, his hand's not big enough.
Yeah.
I mean, he barely gets it around the cards to shuffle them. And so he's trying to hold on to it for dear life. I think he knows I'd be more mad if he was throwing the cards on the floor.
I get a kick out of kids that come in with decks that are, maybe about a foot high. And that they think the more cards, the better. And, you tell them, hey, by the time you get the cards out that you need, the game is over.
Yeah. Consistency is one of the things that gets taught early in a collectible deck building card game. You got to have consistency, and that's why you use the minimum number of cards that you can keep. Unless you need more for some cases. I saw Richmond's Magic Tournament. Somebody played Battle of Wits, which is a deck that usually has like 200 cards in it. So they were stacking it up on the table with everybody.
But, getting back to making money in the store.
Yeah, let's talk.
You've got to allow all kinds of payments, too. I used to accept checks, and I still do from people who, want to write a check. That's usually not going to happen anymore. You have to be able to accept Apple Pay and, whatever form of payment. So you have to have a credit card machine and you have to be able to accept cash. Unfortunately, not a lot of people carry cash anymore, and they put it through the credit card machine. And some people have paid me by PayPal. And they'll say, hey, I have money in my PayPal account. I'll send it to you right now. And they don't leave the store unless I know them, that I've dealt with them for years, until I see that PayPal notification come through. But there's all kinds of scammers, too.
Well, I think it's really important to think about that you got to take money in all the ways that money can come across the table right now. And then one of the things people don't see is that if you're charging $12 for a tournament and they swipe their credit card, not only are you having like the cost of the product for the prizes that go with it, but you're paying what? 3.5%?
About 3%.
3% on your credit card transaction. And that adds up. I mean, that's
without a doubt. Last year, and this is a small store, I don't remember the exact number, but it's like $8,500 in credit card fees. And that does add up.
I mean, that's a lot of money.
It is. The only good thing about it is I just got a new credit card machine, and I talked to the sales rep that I met, the other one that left the company a number of years ago, and he looked at the fees. He said, I think I can get it down to you. So I'm going to submit a request from First Data to look at it. He said, you've been paying for a number of years. He said, I think you deserve a little bit lesser fee. I said, that's fine with me. Whatever the hell you can do to get it down. Even if it's $50 a month, it's $50 a month. And that goes to the bottom line.
Yeah.
That's how you make money.
Well, being careful about your expenses is definitely how you make money. That's one of the points I thought you might make for us, is that you make a lot of money on the buy side, not just on the sell side. Making good choices about quantity, product that you bring into the store,
Right.
What you're bringing into the store is one of the places that really affects that bottom line.
Right. You got to be judicious about where you spend your money. And a lot of times people will come in and they'll want to sell me some stuff. They'll sell me their cards. And I'm sure I alluded to this before. People come in and I never saw them before. Where'd you buy your cards from? Well, I got them from Walmart, or I got them from, another store. I said, well, go to the other store. Maybe they'll buy them. And I don't buy them for cash anymore. I used to. Now it's store credit. I know some stores will give you a little bit more money. That's fine. I do store credit because that guarantees that they're going to spend the money back in my store. They're not going to take my money, my cash, and go 15 minutes away and buy something else at another store.
Well, depending on what they buy with store credit, that's a lot better deal for you anyway, because $1 of store credit is only costing you 70 or 80 cents.
Right.
I think that's a good point. Well, John, I think that's all I thought about in this main topic was just this idea that there's a lot of ways that money needs to be made for the store. There's some justification for why fees are charged in the store. It's not arbitrary. It's not something that you're doing just to try to hurt players and keep them out of the game. But in order for the store to be open, there's a lot of expenses that have to be paid. And it's reasonable to ask for compensation for running the place that people can play.
It's true. But, again, getting back to making money, sometimes you have to sell online in order to bring more money into the store. It just depends what you want to do and how you want to create, your business. I myself, at times, if it's a bad month, and I know through previous years what are the bad months or the slower months, not bad, but slower. And what I'll do is I'll take a couple of items that I can and I'll put them on eBay. I'll sell them. And again, just an expense in selling online, which we talked about last time.
Yep. Well, John, I think that wraps us up on our main topic for today. Why don't we jump on down to our 3 E's section? And for folks that haven't joined us before, we like to educate, enlighten, and entertain you. And in this section of the podcast, we like to share a little tidbit from the world that is maybe not directly related to gaming, but can enlighten you or educate you about something new.
You ready for me?
I am ready for you.
All right.
You are, John.
This is actually business related, Noah.
Okay.
And Time to Thrive, that's the name of the topic itself. It's tips to take your business to new heights. And one of the things that I read about in here, and this can, before we get into the education part, this goes into the business part. Create a risk register. List the top risks or top 10 risks to the business and prioritizing them according to severity of impact. Examples include products, supplies or suppliers, competition, legal issues, regulations, data protection, losing key players, and so forth and so on. Product supply. Suppose you can't get that product from XYZ distributor. You might have to go on to secondary market to get that product. You have to think on your feet. Competition. You never know when competition is going to become a thorn in your side. Somebody could open up a store a mile away from you. In this particular area, there's about 5 or 6, maybe 7 or 8, I don't know, gaming stores. Everybody's competing with each other. Everybody, they think, again, if they run a big tournament and they have, 60 players come in, that it's going to be prestigious for them. That's the way they want to do their business. That's fine. But you always have to be aware of the competition. And I look on social media to see what other stores are doing. I listen intently to my regular customers because they're always coming in and telling me things, little things here and there that I pick up on. And you got to be aware of your surrounding, got to be aware of what potentially could impact your business. And, it's funny because I broach on this subject today. One of the followers on Spotify, he comes into the store, he says, I like that it's not just talking about gaming stores. You talk about business in general. He said, I find that very interesting. And I said, well, I'll try to put more of that into it. And sometimes you got to use your head. You got to use your gut. You got to figure out, what you want to do and how you want to do it. And you have a gut feeling about things sometimes. So enough of that for today. All right. One of the things, and I found this to be funny. Why does time seem to pass faster as we get older? Did you ever think about that? When you were younger, time seemed like it was dragging out, right? But as you get older, it's done. It's done in a heartbeat. I'm going to read this because it's easier for me to do it this way. As we age, time seems to pass more quickly, and we do not know why. A common explanation for this is that our brains process less information as we grow older, which makes time seem to speed up. While science has not been able to prove this or any explanation to be true, scientists have put forward a theory that can offer some insights. And there's a couple other things in here. Let me see. For a 5-year-old, 1 year is 20% of their life, packed with experiences as they discover the world around them. However, the same amount of time is only 2% of a 50-year-old's life that likely has fewer new experience. Another thing that probably applies to me is another theory that has been attempted to explain why time passes fast was proposed by a researcher at Duke University. He identified the aging brain as the reason we have an altered perception of time. Let's see. He believes that we're able to take in new information faster when we were young, allowing the brain to process more within the same period. This makes the days appear longer than they might be later on.
Interesting.
Yeah, it is. I'm going to be 78, so I guess my brain can't assimilate anything else lately. I don't know.
I won't make any judgments about how
No,
fast you
don't say a
process
word, no,
information.
because I'll come back right at you. Your turn. And it's because you have kids. That screws up your brain, too.
Oh my gosh, it does, doesn't it?
Oh, hell yeah. I mean, you're going to have a soon-to-be teenager, and you ain't
we just
seen
tried not to
nothing
talk
yet.
about that.
You ain't seen nothing yet. Characters in the store.
Yeah, tell me, do we got somebody we want to talk about this week?
Well, he wasn't a character, but he was a nice kid when he was younger. And I used to drive home past where he lived. And sometimes he lived with his grandmother, and his grandmother was sickly, and she couldn't pick him up all the time. So I would drive him home on my way home, which was no problem at all. And he was a nice kid. Then all of a sudden, he grew up and he went to a couple other stores with some other people, and he developed a piss poor attitude. And he would challenge everything that I did on Magic the Gathering. If I had this prize structure, well, the other store's doing it this way. And I said, well, I don't give a damn about the other store. This is the way I'm going to do it. Well, you should do it this way. And, he was very opposed to everything I said. So I said to him one day, I said, John, his name was Jonathan. I said, Jonathan, I want you to stop doing what you're doing. You're challenging me and you're making me look, weak by not going back at you. I said, so knock it off. Otherwise, you're not going to come in the store anymore. He was good for about a week or two. And then he started up again. And I said, that's it, John, you're out. He said, what do you mean you're out? I said, I don't want you back in the store. Go back to where you were playing, when you left here and, challenge them. I said, but you're not challenging me anymore. And when I did that, some of the other players commented to me that they were glad that I, wouldn't let him in the store anymore because he was disruptive to them too. So as a store owner, you got to be careful of those kind of things too. I hated to do it because he was a nice kid, but he became a not so nice kid as he got older, very belligerent.
Yeah, it's difficult because the environment is difficult to manage and that one person can really throw it off. But you want to have an open place where people can come, you can welcome new people, and hopefully they add well into the community and the play field. But I think it's an important thing to note as a store owner that's running a social experience that you do have to manage those social expectations and interactions.
You do. You have to watch everybody else around in the store to make sure that they're having a good time and nobody as an individual is screwing it up because you don't need that.
Yeah. Well, John, I think that brings us towards the end of this episode. Before we give out our call to action, do you have any closing thoughts you want to share?
Nope. I'm good for today. No, I'm all talked out.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us this week on Card Shop Insiders. We're so grateful for your support through listening. And if you like our show, please like, subscribe, and follow us on all the different platforms. The podcast can now be found on Spotify, iTunes, and YouTube. And you can follow us on social media at Card Shop Insiders on Instagram and Twitter. If you want to interact with the show or have questions you would like to see covered on future episodes, please head over to our YouTube channel and share a comment on the latest episode. Finally, if you're able, willing, and interested to contribute to the show financially, you can join up on Patreon, where our basic tier subscription will soon include show notes, stickers, and more. Thank you again, and we'll see you next week with more from Behind the Counter.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate you listening also.